Hello there, I didn't see you. We're gonna try something a little different today. You've all seen me yelling and screaming. You see me do tours of the store and the shelves, but we're gonna do something different today. This is gonna be my fireside chat. We're gonna call this Nick History, where it all started from. I wasn't always the guy you see yelling and screaming. I used to be really nice. I'm gonna make it real fast. My dad died when I was 16 years old, so I really didn't have a lot going on. Most of my friends did wind up in jail. That's a true story. Nick, am I lying?
It's true.
Every one of my friends went to jail. I had 2 friends die in jail. Grew up in Patterson, New Jersey. Not exactly the optimal place for a young guy to grow up, but I did. I turned out okay. Had a really good mom, and you know, she was pretty strict, thank God. Anyway, my family owned a trucking company. My grandparents. So my main plan was to always be a truck driver. Well, when I turned 17, they sold it, so there went that idea. So I had to do something. At the time, I was a mechanic working for the trucking company, and my tool man, Mac tool guy, his name was Bob Rabe. Okay, nice guy. And I said, you know what? I like tools. How hard could it be to sell tools? So first, I went to Snap-on. And they turned me down because I was too young. Okay? So then I went to Mac Tools, and they turned me down because I was too young. But we had a mutual friend in the trucking business, Dan Barkley Trucking out of New Jersey, and his cousin was a Mac Tool rep. Okay? A field manager. Nick, what was his name? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
Bob Ketchabevi.
Oh.
You know Bob Ketchabevi?
Yes.
So Bob Ketchabevi called me up. He's like, "You're from a good family. I know you people. I can get you a route." So he gets me a route. Now at the time, Mac Tools was a very, very strong company, and there was no routes available anywhere except for one place, Newark, New Jersey. Okay? And I don't know if you ever heard of Newark, New Jersey, but it isn't exactly Shangri-La. So they stuck me in Newark, New Jersey at 19 years old. And my first day at work with my district manager, he had to go somewhere, so he left me by myself. And I was like, oh, I'll grab lunch real quick. So I walk into a Popeye's fried chicken. Okay? Actually, no, I'm lying to you. It was a Kentucky fried chicken at the time. It turned into a Popeye's. So I walk into this Kentucky fried chicken on Freeland Heights Avenue in Newark, and I walk in, and the whole thing is bulletproof glass. And I was like, what the f am I doing? And, you know, 19-year-old kid in Newark, tool truck full of tools, and sitting in Kentucky Fried Chicken, rethinking my life choices. It's a funny story. My district manager at the time, he was telling me that he recently had a guy who started in business, was in the tool truck for 1 week, and he called up and said, listen, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I don't care how much money I'm going to lose. I'm out of business. And the guy went out of business in 1 week. Now, at the time, I really wanted to be a Snap-on dealer. But at the time, Snap-on dealers were going out of business every year. They were dropping. And Mac was a stronger company at the time. This is the 80s. It's 1985. And Mac Tools was definitely a better choice to go into business with. You know, you had longevity. And I lasted 18 years with Mac Tools. And Mac Tools, as a company, was not a good company. They always, no matter what you did and you made money, they found a way to take that money from you every time. And this is funny. Like this book that I had here is Mac Advantage. Okay, and before Mac Advantage the payment process was called Mac Cap. Okay, and man, when I tell you, I lost so much money with Mac Tools extended credit. They had a design where the only person responsible for that bill was you, the dealer, and we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars through the years with Mac Cap and Mac Advantage. It's funny. I forget what year it was. Probably in the 90s. They sent us all letters, and they just had a slush fund. And what they would do is they would take 2% of every sale and put it into this fund. So when somebody went upside down, they pulled it out of that fund. But they found out it was illegal that they were doing that, and they had to cut every dealer a check. It was funny. You couldn't imagine. And at the time, you know, when you're at Mac, you're not exactly making a lot of money. So it was nice to get a little bonus check finally from them guys. But anyway, so listen, I want to talk a little about tools. So my son's here. Nick, go out in a store and find me 2 of our best-selling tools that we have. You know, when I started the tool business, it was. I mean, like, when it comes to scanners, when I first started the business, the only company making a scanner was OTC. It was called the GM85, and it was just a little code reader, and you stuck a card in it. And no, that was no, that didn't have a card. The GM85 scanner was the prelude to the the OTC scanners. It was the first one. It was just a standalone unit, and it was just worked on GM. Then it came out with a scanner that worked on GM, Ford, or Chrysler. That's right. And that was called the OTC 2000, I believe it was. And then they came out with the Asian cartridge. And OTC at the time was making really, really good scanners. I mean, they were the only company making scanners. TIFF came out, they were making a scanner. Snap-on rebranded it, and that was when he slid a card into. I started selling tools before digital was a thing. It used to be everything was analog gauges. And when I remember when they first came out with digital gauges, it was like the biggest thing in the world. They were huge and expensive, but guys were buying them because it was new. I mean, when I started, we were selling timing lights like crazy. We would sell 2 or 3 timing lights a week. You know, even air tools. We would sell half-inch impact guns. We were selling at the time, Ingersoll ran 231s. Couldn't keep them on a truck. The Mac tool version was a 234, which is probably still the best gun ever made, and we sold tons of them. I forget what they cost. They were under $200 if my memory serves me correct for a 234. It might have been $150. I don't even know. And it's funny because like back then, everything was made in USA. Very few tools were made in China or Taiwan. And believe it or not, a lot of the air tools back then were made, where, Nick, do you know? Japan. Japan, yeah. A lot of the air tools were made in Japan. But, you know, now, I mean, like now, and it's funny because Nick brought me these screwdrivers. And this is like one of our best sellers, is the Vessel brand. And, you know, Vessel is a Japanese company, and most of their tools are made in Japan. This particular set is made in Taiwan, I believe, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And it's $40. This is one of our best sellers, and it's funny because after fast forward 30 years later, when I became a social media guy, there was this tool dealer. His name was Greg Pippy, and we got into a little online battle, which I seem to do that a lot. And he went out of business, and he drives. I shouldn't say where he drives.
Yeah,
he's a truck driver. But we became really good friends, and he hooked us up with the Vessel line, and I mean, we've sold thousands and thousands of Vessel screwdriver sets at this point. Definitely one of our best sellers, and Greg Pippy's a good friend of ours at this point.
Yeah,
we look forward to him coming in. It was funny. He came in the other day, right? And he wanted something engraved. So we have an engraving machine. So he's like, hey, can you engrave this? He wanted to say, put F his company on it for some reason. And Nick, so again, no problem. Nick went and did it. So I go to him, Greg, he wouldn't do that for anybody. Him doing that for you must mean he really likes you. True story, right? He's a good guy, right? That's the early days of Mac tools. It was different back then. There was no online. There was no stores. If you didn't get a tool from an actual tool truck, you couldn't get it. And at the time, there was only really Snap-on and Mac. They were in the early '80s. Snap-on and Mac were like battling. They were like fighting for number 1 and number 2, and it was really close. Back then, Snap-on and Mac were this shy of each other. I mean, Snap-on was always number 1, but Mac Tools was right on their heels. And at the time, our president, I forget his name, John, whatever the f is, but like that man did. You listen, everybody? Make sure you listen. That man did everything in his power to ruin that company. He did a really good job.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name, man. Sean something. Why don't you Google that?
Mac Tools president?
Yeah, in the 80s. Look him up. But he did everything in his power to destroy that company, and he did. But after he left, the rest of the presidents weren't much better. And they didn't, you know, the Mac tool. I mean, Mac tools. When I started with them in the '80s, I drove out to Ohio, Sabina, Ohio, and we did it. You know, you had to go to school for a week to learn about how to sell tools, how to run a business. And I'll tell you a funny story. At the time, I guess I was 19. I was too young to lease a truck. Did you ever hear the story?
Yeah.
They wouldn't lease me a truck. So I had to buy a truck before I went out to Ohio. So there was a Snap-on dealer who went out of business. And there used to be a shop in my next town over, K&B Customs, and they built Snap-on tool trucks. So they had a used truck for sale, so I went and bought it. But it was funny because I couldn't I couldn't go and pick it up on their lot because I wasn't a Snap-on dealer. So they brought it to an undisclosed location, and my mom drove it home for me because I think I was out in Ohio. And my mother had to go pick up the truck at some gas station off premises and drive the truck home. And it was I forget what year it was. It was like 2 years old, and it was a Snap-on truck. It was a step van, Chevy C30 step van, 454 big block, good truck. And I drove that truck for probably 2 years. And the problem with that truck was the AC never worked, and the displays in it were set up for Snap-on tools, and the Mac displays didn't work, so it was always a hassle. So I sold that truck, and I bought a new truck. So I was like 20 years old. I bought the biggest truck you could possibly buy from Bush and Cook Leasing out in Ohio, Sabina, Ohio. Dual AC, liftgate, and it had a diesel in it. Diesels were new back then in tool trucks. Nobody had a diesel, but I had a diesel. I had a 6.9 Ford diesel, non-turbo. The truck did 55 miles an hour downhill. It was a slug. It cost me $68,000 to buy that truck. And I thought that was $1 million back then. Now you'd have to put another 100 on that to buy a tool truck to start with. Right now I'm out in Ohio in Mac Tool School, Mac Tool College they called it. And at the time you toured all the facilities. You toured all the manufacturing plants, the toolbox plant, the forging plant. They actually forged all their tools, chrome plated all their tools in Ohio. And you know, we did a complete factory tour. We did a tour where they built the trucks, but I wasn't allowed to get a truck there. But I told you that story already. But you know, at the time, everything was made in USA. All hand tools were made in USA, and the air tools were all Ingersoll Rand at the time. And there was no real test equipment back then because it was a company called Actron made all the test equipment for Mac tools, and Sears and Roebuck at the time. So yeah, like back then, like that was your other option. If you didn't have a tool truck, you went to Sears. The Craftsman brand. Craftsman brand back then was a very good tool. You know, it was made in USA. Everything was made in USA back then. You know, and that's what I don't know what happened to this country, but like we've sourced everything out. You can't get anything made in USA these days. You know, like second tool they brought, the Easy Red trays. Okay, these are one of our most popular sellers. It's one of Easy Red's most popular selling tools. Collapsible tray, magnetic, and we've sold thousands of them. You know, it's a 3-pack, red, orange, green. And, you know, at the time, you know, these are made in China, right? China or Taiwan?
China.
China. But like Easy Red is an old school company, and at the time they used to make all their stuff in, where, Nick?
Deposit, New York.
And we heard, you know, Luke's told the story many times how his grandfather, his grandfather was a World War II vet, came home, got married, and started a company. He was a jobber. He was a mobile jobber. He was a guy that drove around in a little van selling auto parts, light bulbs, stuff like that. And he invented. He was a tinkerer. He invented the antifreeze tester. And this is one of the first items he invented. It's basically unchanged. And this is, most of you guys that are watching this is one of the first ones you've ever seen. And there's other ones with the floating balls. Sexton makes them, but like this was cutting edge, because before this, the only way you could check antifreeze was the antifreeze checker was like this big, and had all these dials and knobs, and you had to suck up fluid into it, set the dials and knobs to the temperature was outside. It will tell you what your freeze level was. Or there was refractors where you put a drop of antifreeze on it, looked at a light, and it told you where its freeze point was. But like that would take, you know, a few minutes to set the machine up, and you know, and it was very fragile. It was glass, very hard. You know, it wasn't easy to use. I mean, most of you guys would laugh at it. So he invented this, and basically just walk over to the car, suck up the fluid, and the arrow's going to tell you, you know, what's the freeze point of the antifreeze. And it was easy to read, and that's why he named the company Easy Red. And they started in, what, 1965, Nick? 65?
63?
63, in the 60s. And we became very, very good friends with them through, and a funny story, remember I was telling you my first district manager's name was Bob Ketchabevi? Well, Bob Ketchabevi has moved on and became a partner and one of the owners now of Easy Red. So it's a small world we live in. So, you know, everything comes full circle. And they, you know, we spend a weekend with them every year, and we always sit down and talk about new tools. And I'll tell you a story. When I seen this, I kind of laughed at it. I was like, "That's kind of stupid. Who's gonna buy them?" And what do I know? They sold thousands of them, tens of thousands, probably 100,000 of them at this point, right?
Oh yeah.
So that was my Mac Tool Sabine, Ohio trip. Drove out there, drove home, and came home young, 19 years old, and I was going to set the world on fire and be a millionaire selling tools. Well, if anybody knows how the 80s went, the tool guys in the early 80s made a lot of money. Do you know why they made a lot of money, Nick?
Why?
What happened? Do you know what happened in the early 80s that changed the tool industry?
No.
Really?
No idea.
I bet you most of these guys don't know either. Okay? Everything went from SAE to metric. Think about it. You deal with all these mechanics. You deal with, at the time I think the number was 200 mechanics they wanted you to have. Snap-on, Mac, or Mac. That was the number, 200 mechanics. Imagine 200 mechanics one day, when the new cars came out, they were all metric. Everybody needed new tools. New sockets, new wrenches. Okay? 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch. Chrome, impact. It's a lot of tools. So, you know, you talk to some of, when I got in, I got in 85. You talk to some of the old timers, they were like, "Oh man, you should have been there. We were printing money. Oh my God." You know, they really did. But you know what? We had scanners. So like in the late 80s, we had scanners. So we made some money. But then, you know, the economy tanked in the 90s. You were definitely too young for that. And, you know, things were a little different. Things changed. So I hung out being a Mac tool dealer as long as, let me tell you that story too. Mac Tools was like out of gas, a failing company, and they brought in company employees, and that really was like the final knife in the dealer's back for Mac Tools. They started hiring dealers and gave them a different set of rules to play by, and it really affected us, the original franchisee dealers, you know. So Matco was trying to make a big move to take over the tool industry and unseat Mac Tools as being a number 2 tool dealer at the time. And they were hiring all the Mac dealers. They came to me and offered me a really, really good package. I should have went for it the first time. And I said, "Nah, I'm going to ride it out with Mac. I think they're going to be okay." And then like a year later, they came back with another offer, and I should have took the first offer because the second offer sucked. So I held on with Mac Tools for another year or two, and then I was like practically bankrupt and, you know, broke. And I decided that I had enough, and I either needed to change things or I was going to have a very bad wake-up call in life. So what I did is, you're going to have to wait for part 2. Guys, that's all I got. This is a new thing. Let me know in the comments below if you like it or if you don't like it. But I'm going to tell you my complete history. If you don't want to listen to it, you don't have to. We'll go back to table slamming Tuesday. Okay? Guys, like we always say, come for the price and stay for the show. Peace.